exam sent out, you'll have until the 21st to do it. Sounds, that is right. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on the testing controls. Put up the test of controls document. This is we're going to do the test of controls of the purchasing function. And we're going to kind of go through these each one as we go. We'll go on the next page to do these. But this is sort of like what this is actually kind of a small test of controls, but it'll do what we need it to do. But anyway, so this is kind of the steps in the we're going to do our testing. These are yes, no tests. Sampling for attributes. And what we'll come across as we do this, we'll have different departments, and they'll have approvals by employees, what they can and can't do, focusing mostly on the purchasing department. This is probably the most important one we're going to have here. But we have these other ones too. And they all kind of go together. But it's always difficult to, internal controls are kind of wacky. And it's wacky because there's a lot of steps to it. For example, substantive testing is just one number. You're just looking at, okay, what's the audit number for this item? It's a single number. You look it up, here it is, $5,272, whatever it is. It's one number. Test controls are much more involved. They take much more time. They're all yes, no tests. Is it there or is it not? And it's basically there to give you, the auditor, a feel for what the internal controls are of a place. You'll take a sample and kind of walk through the process and see how the controls are actually working. And this is what we're going to do right now. And I could teach you those, try to teach those separately. I think when you try to teach them separately, it kind of gets lost a little bit. So I'm going to try something a little new. And that is kind of teach them together. I used to do teach the internal controls and then kind of go through a test of controls. And I did have students say, well, I wish we'd have gone through that first, because okay, well maybe we'll. Well, this is us going through it first. Okay, let's go to the second page and we'll get kind of familiar with what's going on here. Okay. So when someone needs something in the company, it could be for production, it could be for maintenance, it could be for whatever. It could be a computer. They will make a requisition. Looks funny here. Oh, sample one. They'll make a requisition. So this is a requisition order, and this will say what you need. Okay, so requisition order says this is what you need for whatever it is. So Amy, it looks like Amy is asking for this. She's going to send this to the purchasing department, saying I need these bearings, bearing seals, I guess. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is do a little test on this requisition. Oops, it shouldn't be filled out. Although I think these are all. We'll take a look at them. All right. Oh, I know why I had that in there. It's for this over here. To get to later. Okay, so here's what we're going to look at. So maintenance department, we got a requisition order by an authorized employee. Okay, so coming down here, we have Amy Anderson. Apparently she's in the maintenance department. And it looks like she's going to have a maintenance production capability. In other words, she can order maintenance parts, it looks like. And you'll have this throughout the plant, that you'll have people that can order certain things and other people that can't. So here we have Amy Anderson, and it looks like anything that's got an MP on it, she can order. So Amy Anderson, an authorized employee. What jump it over there? It is yes. Approved items. We're going to find out that the MP means that it is an approved item. We'll say yes. And another thing about the purchasing department is that you don't just let people buy whatever they want. They have to, there's certain things they can buy. You know, if someone would order for a Ferrari or something, there's only going to be certain things they can buy, and those are set up on as needed. You have to sort of prove to the purchasing department that you need these things, and then they'll order them. And lastly, over here, so here's our requisition order is dated before the purchase order. Okay, so here is the date of it ordered. Excuse me, requisition order. And here is the date of the purchase order. So this came before that. Now you might be wondering, why is that a control? You know, why are you checking to see if the requisition is made before the purchase order? Suppose that it wasn't made before the purchase order. How would that be a problem? How would it be a problem if it was actually the purchase order was actually made before the requisition was received? Anyone?
It wouldn't make sense. So
Yeah, well, yeah, and it, these have the approvals on them and what they are, you know, what they need, and the approvals there. It would mean that they're actually filling a purchase order before it's been, you know, you have this approved requisition that there's someone who's actually saying, I need that. And so without these, you know, if they can make these purchase orders, that would be a problem, because you get a purchasing department doing whatever they want. They can order anything. You know, if they can place this order without a requisition, it would be a problem. And that's what, if they came after it. Now there is, I'll probably wait till the end to talk about it. There are a very limited times something like that happens. But anyway, so this is kind of checking off, okay, is Amy authorized to do this? Yeah, she looks like she can order maintenance parts, or, you know, maintenance purchases. So yeah, looks like Amy can do that in the production part of our, and she can send it over to the make a purchase order out of that, so that the purchasing department will then go and take a look and see, you know, if they can make this order, and hopefully they have it set up with a vendor. All of these are going to be set up as a vendor. And okay, so let's take a look here. So let's go on to the purchasing department, and this one's going to be much more involved. By the way, just as a side, when I was looking at this, I happened to think, well, what was the last time I ordered? I didn't know, I haven't ordered for like 30 years. And I looked up the last purchase order program I had, and there was 32. There's 32 things to test on it. But we got it's down to like, what do I have? 9? I can't remember. 8. Okay. There's a lot of things that are, but anyway, the idea that, look, this is not just grabbing one number. If this was grabbing not one number, you'd have, 640 or whatever, and be done with it. Okay, purchase order. Purchase order is signed by an authorized employee. You sign this? I'm gonna zoom out a little bit just to make this a little bit more. Darnell Brooks. Here's Darnell Brooks. Okay, so Darnell Brooks in the purchasing department, and looks like Darnell Brooks deals with the MP orders. Probably like production or something like that. Yeah, production. So maintenance production order. So Darnell is approved. Purchase order item descriptions match the requisition. So these match these. And they do. And yeah, stuff like that, you be careful because it might be that somebody orders something thinking it's completely different. So there might be different descriptions, and hopefully they're in the same system, but that's not always the case. Maintenance departments have they can be a little bit tricky because you know companies will have their inventory system set up, and maintenance will have their own system set up for maintaining different things, uh, job orders and all that kind of stuff to fix things and do routine maintenance and all that kind of stuff. So getting those two systems to match up sometimes be a problem. Okay, so purchase order item quantities match the requisition. Okay, I think they do. Yep. Uh, Purchase order is dated at the same time or before the receiving report. Okay, well, we're going to have to go down here to the receiving report and take a look at that. Why are we checking on that? Why would the receiving report? So they received these goods, whatever the bearings, bearing seals. They received those on February 25th. The purchase order is made February 18th. Why are we checking that? What could be a problem if say we received the item before there was a purchase order? It's actually a big problem. Suppose you receive something and there's no purchase order for it. Why could that be a problem? Well, take it from just from your own personal. Suppose you get a package delivered to your doorstep that says, "Hey, here's a package for Mark Taylor from whatever this is from, All City Supplies." The first thing that goes through my mind is I didn't order anything from All City Supplies. So the worry is that that this was not a valid order, and that there's two problems with this. First of all, that they could be trying to bill you for it. And second of all, they should never receive it if there is no purchase order for it. It shows up, there's no purchase order for it, you turn it away. Just dumb luck. I was on an audit when that actually happened. The truck pulled up, had all this stuff on it, and then he was going through, the driver's like, well, this is order from blah 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 blah. We have no purchase order on it. We don't, and the supervisor said, you got to take this away, take it back wherever you got it, because we didn't order it. So it does happen, and I don't know if, some mistakes it could be someone just trying to ship you something though that you didn't order and then sending you a bill for it saying, hey, we shipped this to you. And you look, oh, here's a receiving report. I guess we got to pay for it. So it needs to have it needs to have the purchase order before the shipping department should, or excuse me, the receiving department should accept it. Okay. So I don't think I ticked that one off, did I? Okay. The purchase order was sent to an approved vendors. Another thing the purchasing department does is they approve vendors. So coming down here, it looks like All City is approved for production orders. Well, that's going to be a yes. The purchasing department employee is authorized. Okay, so that would be Darnell. Darnell is for MP and he is authorized to order it. Why do they have these all broken up like that? Why can't Darnell just purchase anything, from general or vehicles or anything like that? Now it is possible that they could have more than one thing that they can order from, they may have more than one area. But why do they limit that in?
As an internal control so that he doesn't have the option to just order anything that doesn't pertain to his job.
Exactly. Darnell Brooks is production is her thing, and the production is all that they should have access to. And ordering things from or even setting up contracts for other departments is not. And you realize something that they could also be setting up fictitious ones or something like that. Believe it or not, the most vulnerable people in your company, a lot of them are these purchasing people. A lot of times these are most vulnerable for things like fraud. And you say, well, why? And because they are purchasing from somebody, the problem of kickbacks can be a real problem. They're talking with these vendors, and the idea that, look, we'll give you this and we'll, instead of paying you $7, we'll pay you, $12 for these. But I need something, I need you guys to give me something, cash or something on the outside. So the problem with that, there's a couple problems. It's very difficult to detect that. There's not going to be some vendor showing up at work and saying, hey, here's the kickback for, whoever. It's all done. It's never the kickback is never on the company books. It's not like someone's going to say, hey, where's the money for the kickback? Where's it? It's not on the company books. And it's often done off site. So it isn't even like, well, we have surveillance cameras. Doesn't matter. It's done off site. They're not gonna, be on a video camera handing you cash. They'll do it some other place. There are no video cameras. So it's very difficult sometimes to find kickbacks for people who aren't purchasing. So it's always been that way. It's always been a difficult position because they are, how do you get money out of a company? You can do it through, selling them something and purchasing it. That's one of the ways to do it. Okay. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I didn't, oh, that yabbing, and I didn't put a yes in. Okay. Orders have at least 3 competitive bids. This is coming down here, and this is going to be for all of them. It is something you check on. And if they do, if something is ordered that's out of the ordinary, this becomes much more important. Things that are run of the mill, there usually are competitive bids. But for things that are unusual, one-off things, it can sometimes be a problem because they have to get competitive bids, and sometimes there's only one seller, and it becomes difficult to know whether the price is a good price and all that. But the idea is to get the best price for the company. A lot of times they'll have this 3 competitive bids as a rule that many companies have. Okay. Purchase order items are at the approved prices. Okay, now, so part of our deal over here is that we talk to them and we get what their prices are, and they say they have a list price, and then they'll say, okay, we'll give you minus 5% off the list price. Okay, so coming back over here. So here's our list price for these items. They're supposed to get a 5% discount. I'm positive that's right, but I'm going to check it just to make sure. By the way, you're doing an audit, you will often actually do these by hand. $15.39 is right. 1805 is correct. And 95. Okay, so these are all correct. And just for laughs, you'll probably want to, not just for laughs, but the quantity times the price, and make sure that it comes out to this. And you might be saying, well, I'm going to be doing this in Excel. Do I really need to do this? Actually, they will oftentimes have register tapes if you're doing an external audit to attach to the spreadsheets. They'll print out the spreadsheets and they'll have those attached to it to show that they are correct, because you don't want an error in your spreadsheet to give you the wrong number. And all those are correct. Total is correct. Let's see. $582.35, that's right. 10% of that we find. Okay, that's right. Add those two together, 59. 82 and 58, 12, 40, yeah, that's it. Okay, so this is all correct. And that's what you want to see. And again, if you're doing these by hand, you'll put the they'll actually have a they'll actually have an adding machine and tape. They still do it. A lot of CPA firms will still do it. And again, the idea is that even though, okay, I have Excel and Excel, people make errors in formulas all the time. Sometimes something goes in as a text instead of a number and all kinds of stuff. So they will have you do a register tape to go along with it. And I know that sounds funny. It's like, oh, how archaic. But remember, you could get dragged into court. And you don't want to drag into court and say, oh, yeah, well, we made an error in the spreadsheet. And, you check it? No. So, it's one of those things you're preparing as if you're going into court. And so, oftentimes stuff like this, you'll do it by hand. Okay, receiving department. Now, here's how this receiving report will work. The receiving report will generally come off of the purchase order. And these will all be blank, the quantities will all be blank. These will all be blank. And you have to fill them in. So if they I erased them all, but 30 and 5 and 40. These will be put in. Why are these now for the receiving department? So this is when the stuff comes in, this is what they'll see. Why are these left blank? Why aren't they filled in? Why did they say, well, we ordered 35 and 40? Why don't they have that here? Why aren't these filled in so the receiving department knows how many there are? These are all left blank. They come off the purchase order. This will come off the purchase order. Yeah. So everything will come off the purchase order with the exception of the quantity. We don't put the quantity, we don't put the price. They don't need it if they're counting it on the receiving end. But why are these left blank? And either electronically they're left blank or they also are printed out, they're left blank. Why? Anyone? So here's a receiving report, and someone brings it in, you go, okay, well, so this is the, we matched it up with this order that comes in. This is for purchase order, could be more than one, but here's the purchase order, and the quantities are left blank. Why?
So they have to count to make sure they actually receive the amount that they bought.
Yeah, you want them to count it, and if they don't know how many are supposed to be, it'd be very easy if the numbers were already in there to say, are there 40? Yeah, probably. Especially near the end of the day. What time is it? Like 4:30? Yeah, they're all there. And then so you want them to count it. You leave it blank so they have to be counted. So they count them 35 and 40, and let's say that everything works out. They count them. They're all there. What am I doing here? Oh. Oh, no, I messed up my thinking. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay, so they counted them, and we know they counted them. These were left blank. So let's take a look. Receiving report is signed by an authorized employee. Okay, who's in the receiving department? Receiving department looks like they can either of these people are fine. Oops, that G-min. So David is authorized. So that would be yes. Oop, no. There's gotta be a better way for me to do it. I don't know. If you guys have any ideas of a better way to lay this out, I'm all ears. Items on receiving report match the purchase order. They do. So these match those. Receiving report has count of items received. Yes. And this one's kind of redundant. Receiving report is dated after or at the same time as the purchase order. We actually already did that one up at the top. And one of the reasons why you could do that is if you had the receiving department, if those are kind of being audited separately, so that you can actually look at it and it'd be the same one. Okay, let's go to accounts payable. Oh, so here is what accounts payable does. They make their computer screen all wickety way. All right. We have a purchase order. We have a receiving report, and we have the vendor invoice. Before we pay anything, we're going to have all three of those. If any one of those is missing, so approved by Kelly, looks like 1, 2, and 3. If any of those are missing, the purchase order, the receiving report, or the invoice, if any of those are missing, it doesn't get paid. You have to have all three. Okay, so accounts payable, the quantities on the vendor invoice match the items on the receiving report. 35 and 40, this is a yes. By the way, why don't we use the purchase order for that? You know, why don't we look up here and say, oh, what was on the purchase order? Shouldn't it be the same as on the purchase order? Why don't we? Oh, go ahead.
You don't always get everything at once. Everything that's on the purchase order. Sometimes they may send different items in different shippings.
Absolutely, that's exactly it. You know, instead of the 40 bearing seals, maybe you got 20. Maybe they didn't have 40. They had a stock out or something like that. Or maybe they only sent 20, or you know, it could be they mispacked it or something like that. So exactly right. The amount that we received is what we should be billed for, not what we ordered, because they may not be all there. So yes, that's exactly. Okay, so that's the prices. The prices on the vendor invoice match the prices on the purchase order. Now, again, we're looking at the prices, not the quantity. So the prices should be, let's be 30 at, because these are all the same. Yeah, yeah, if I be, okay, yeah, these all match up. Okay. And accounts payable is made by an authorized employee. It looks like we only have one, so that should be an easy one. And it is Kelly. Okay. Treasury Department. Payment is made within agreed upon payment terms. All right, so let's go down here. So here's the payment terms. They want to be paid. This is all city, right? All city, okay. So All City wants to be paid in 45 days. Now, it's going to be 45 days from the time that we receive it. Not, they might print the vendor invoice right away, but it's when we receive it that the 45 days starts. So received it on the 25th of February. It was made on the 3/22. Yeah, so that's well within the time frame. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so this is exactly how want we want the mobile to be. Nice and boring. Everything checks out. By the way, there is a problem with auditors getting bored and not doing all the work, or kind of assuming that it's, you do 5 or 6 of these and they take a long time to do. By the time you get to the seventh one, you go, okay, yeah. It is a problem. It can be anyway. Okay, so this one would be, and so if you go all the way over here to the summary of it, you'll see that this first one here, we have all these are okay. We're still gonna have these other ones in our sample, but this first one looks like everything is okay. All right, let's go to number 2. Number 2 is thankfully similar to number 1. We have the same people involved, the same kind of item category, same vendor. And there's nothing wrong if you're doing an audit to kind of group those together so you're not jumping all over the place. Maybe sample, 1, 2, and 8 are the same, so then you go ahead and take those together and do them all at once. All right. So we got a new requisition order. By the way, you'll see something up here too. This is something that most companies will have something like this. The requisition number becomes the purchase order, becomes a receiving report, that these are all matched up. So you can look at the receiving report, you'll know what purchase order it came from, you'll know what requisition it came from. They usually have something that links them all together. Okay. So let's take a look, see here. Signed by authorized employee, Amy, yep. Because in order for approved items, Amy can approve anything with an MP designation, so. Okay. Requisition order is dated at the same time or before the purchase order. It is. Looks like the purchase orders are cut the next day. Purchase order signed by an authorized employee. Now it's the same one we had last time, isn't it? Descriptions match. Quantities match the requisition. Purchase order is dated before the receiving report. Oh, no. Yeah, it is. I thought I goofed up on this one. Purchase order is sent to an approved vendor. All city supplies is our vendor, that is fine. Purchasing department employee is authorized to purchase from that one. We already went through that before. Darnell is, looks like production, maintenance production parts. He is authorized. Items ordered, 3 competitive bids. Yep. Purchase orders for approved items. Okay, so we gotta do this again. I did an audit one time of purchases that uh, every single one of them, they had the tax amount, the rate correct. Every single one of them was done wrong though. And I had to track down why. Okay, so let's see here. $520. 494, 20. Go to 75. Okay, that one's correct. 29. And check that one. And 3 times that. Yep. Well, 3, 8, okay, and so, okay, well, that all adds up. And you should always check on that stuff whenever they give a percentage. I'll tell you, you should do that anyways. You're getting a loan. My wife, when she graduated from college, she never had any credit. I mean, it wasn't good credit, bad credit. There was none. So we're trying to build up credit. So we bought a car. We actually had the cash for it, but instead we got this loan so that she could pay the loan for a couple of years, get history, whatever. And then anyway, so we had this, we negotiated this price of 8% for the loan. This was years ago. Anyway, they put it on the loan, they did all the stuff, and but they did all the calculations at like 9%, but it showed 8% on it. And I was like, this can't be right. This can't be right. And sure enough, it wasn't. I was at a car dealer. I know, big surprise. All right, receiving department, signed by authorized employee. In Park, she is authorized. Receiving report matches the items match the items on the purchase order. They do. Receiving report has a count of items received. Yes. Receiving report is dated at the same time. After the same, yeah, it's the same thing we did before. Okay, so there's a count. Now there is something interesting here. What's interesting about the receiving report? Anyone? Nothing is a receiving report. What could it possibly be interesting? But what is comparing the what's interesting about the receiving report?
They only received 5 instead of 10.
Yeah. Now notice we didn't highlight that as a problem because it's not. We want people to count it, and if there's 5, there's 5. I mean, that's what we want them to do. So there's no problem with it being less than on the purchase order. And quite honestly, the people in the receiving department, they're not going to know that. They probably think, they ordered 5. So that's not a problem. Then now you got to make sure that the invoice matches up with that. So that's what we're going to do next, and it looks like it does. Quantities on the invoice match the receiving report. Yes. The prices match those. Okay, we had to do a little bit of calculating here. Notice that it's not like the last one where we can just say, oh, here it is, and oh, here it is, they match, because they don't match. Okay. So let's see. 494 times 5. 24.7. Okay, that's fine. We got to make sure that this adds up. And we also got to be careful because these taxes, we don't want them charging us the higher amount for taxes that, because it's a lower order. So let's make sure that this works out. Plus 5.1 plus 106.5. Hey, just did a mistake. 161. Okay, so yeah, they did right. So these all add up. So this is the important one there. Obviously, it's a different amount. That changes your total here, here, and here. Okay, so that one's a yes. That one. Payment was authorized by an employee, Kelly Fulmer. And again, Kelly is the only one, so you should all be signed by Kelly Fulmer. Okay, made the payment within the agreed upon. Okay, they have, what was that, 45 days, I think, for this one, 45. Receiving report was on 30/15. Yep, easily within. So the check was cut within the, we honored the contract, so we said. Okay, and then we go, as you'll find out as you do these, as you go on, you get faster in. And it's true with anything, but the first one takes you a long time, the second one takes you less and less. Okay, let's go to this one. I tell you what, let me have you guys do this one. Find out what there's something wrong with this one. These first two, there was nothing wrong with them. Even though the quantity wasn't right, everything worked out. You got charged for the right amount. There is something wrong with this one. And I'll say, let's go ahead and take a break. But when we come back, let's say come back at not eight, seven. I don't know. I think like 10 minutes to get through this. Maybe. Say at let's say 7:10 maybe. Be back at 7:10, and in that time, see if you can figure out what's wrong with this one. So there's something wrong with it. What is it? Number three. Try something here. Hey, it's not on here. It is right. What a problem with the mouse. It's actually a problem with me. Okay, what's wrong with this one? Somebody has it. What's wrong with this one? No one has it? Oh, come on, somebody has it. Is it
The
clearing
date,
your?
oh,
Go ahead.
the date for the vendor invoice.
Um, the vendor sometimes vendors sometimes will when they ship it they'll actually cut the invoice at that time. So it is true. Now coming down here, item quantities match. Okay, they do. I think 5, 10, 5. Yes. Prices. Notice something. I think if I can. It came out to 184.14. They got 195.69. Row. No. Oops. And I'm doing, pay no attention for a second. Okay. What's the problem? Yeah, here's the, uh, so what's the problem with this? There's actually two problems, but what's the problem with the invoice?
The vendor just forget the discount.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. 5 times 21, they didn't give us a discount on this first one. And, I mean, it's, the difference here is, if you take kind of taxes, what, $10, $11, 11.50 maybe. Okay, so now dollar wise, so this is off by, well, we can figure out what it's off. They're charging us that. It should have been, or our client thing. So this is off by $11.55. Now, no matter what size the company is that a material amount? Probably not. However, okay, so this is no. Approved by an employee, yes. And payment was made within the terms. net 30. And this will be from the time of the receiving report. Yeah. Now, okay, so what is the dollar wise is probably not that big a deal. But there is something about this that is a kind of a big deal. What is it? What is the problem? It's actually larger than the dollar amount. And remember, these are tested controls, these are yes, no tests. And so we have a no here. I'll give you a hint. It comes after the no.
Is she not the correct approver?
Yeah, it was never corrected. Now, it's possible someone looks at this and says, oh, this got this wrong, and they pay them for the correct amount. This was approved and paid for at the incorrect amount. So the problem is this was approved. And that's a much bigger problem because that means that invoices that are not correct could be getting paid, even though they don't match up with the information that we have for the purchase order, or receiving report, and or the invoice. So the big problem is this right here. This yes is actually a problem. Because it was approved at this higher amount. That is a bigger problem than, say, the dollar amount. Because this shows that it can happen that you'll have these invoices that don't match up. And again, sometimes they'll just correct the invoice and say, okay, this isn't the right amount. Looking back at it, they go, okay, this is what it should be. And they'll put it in the 184.14. That would be fine. But because this is paid at the wrong amount, and it was approved for payment at the wrong amount, that could be a problem. All right, and you have to figure out why that was, basically. One of the things in auditing, whenever you find something that's wrong, you always dig into why. The why is very important. If you look into this, maybe they said, yeah, well, we told purchasing, and purchasing, they got a credit for $10 or $11, whatever it was. It is possible that there isn't a problem here. They just pay the invoice and they got a credit from the vendor. But until you look into that, you don't really know. And without any more information, this should not have been paid at the higher amount. Okay, let's go to this one. I remember what I did wrong on this one. Oh, there's something minor wrong on this one.
The invoice date?
Let's see. The invoice date is early. Okay, so we'll go through this. Hey, how come these aren't the same, are they? Oh, yes, they are. Never mind. Okay, well, let's see here. This is Mohammed. We know from the last one, Mohammed is authorized. Anything with MG. Okay, dates are Looks like they do them, put them out the next day.
It's, does it matter? Well, not does it matter, but the quantity is more than what was approved on the requisition.
Yes, that is from this one. I see signed by an authorized employee. Say yes. Yes, authorized and descriptions. Yes. Quantities. No. And yes, you hit the nail right on the head. This is. I'm gonna highlight all of them and then I'll go back and fix it. Oh, here is the problem. The LED 20 watt, I imagine those are light bulbs. They ordered 8, they had 12. Now, if you look down here though, LED 20 watt 58 are only sold in multiples of 5. Okay, so this is one of those things that even though it is a change, they actually have documented why it's a change. And maybe, you know, the requisition, they should have that somewhere, that multiples of 5 somewhere, you know, these must be ordered in multiples of 5 or whatever it is. So anyway, while it is different, it does kind of explain it. And I don't know if anything else in here or not. Receiving report. You sent me 4, yes. Approved vendor. I think McLean is the same one as before, right? I think that is a vendor. Muhammad was there. New Time Clean is also a approved vendor. These 3 competitive bids, it looks like all of these were, you know, so they had 6 competitive bids. Sometimes with vendors, especially for like small things, they'll have multiple items and they'll have bidding on multiple items. You know, maybe they go through 5,000 rolls of paper towels or something, and you know they will kind of price it out as which part is which vendor. You know, send us your best price on all these mixed basket of things, and any given one they may not be the cheapest, but if overall they are. Yep. And I am the approved prices. Yep. I really did in this one. I thought I did something more in this one. Okay, receiving report. Signed by authorized employee, Bill Bethke. I think he was the same one as last time. The shooting report matched the purchase order. So the items. Yep. Report as count of items received. Yep. Receiving report is dated after or at the same time as the purchase order. We know that from the previous one we did. Accounts payable. Item quantities from the vendor invoice match the receiving report. They do. Prices match the purchase order. Yeah, they do. You can actually just look at the total on those. If these are all the same, it's gonna be the same total. If it's not the same, then you gotta do a little ciphering, but. Approved by employee, who approved it? Oh, wait, Kelly. And payment was made within, I don't know. 30 days. Yep. Okay. So this is one of those that is, well, even though you got a no here, it's probably not that big a deal. It looks like they, there's an explanation as what happened with it. Why we had to order 2 extra ones. And by the way, there is also something in business that is, you got to keep the doors open. So, if you say, well, why don't you send it back and have them correct it? Well, they might be waiting for those things. You send it back and they don't, they don't look at it in the system, or they don't look at it on their desk, and then they figure it out. But where are those light bulbs at? It's unsafe and dark in the lunchroom. So there is this idea though that you got to keep the doors open. In other words, yeah, if something is a little bit off, you can also correct it in different ways. But you certainly do. They certainly document what they did, and it should be, that it's on the up and up and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so as long as you say, well, this should be sent back to be corrected. A lot of times that's not really, well, theoretically, maybe it's the correct thing to do, so they know they're ordering 10 instead of 8. At the same time, it's better to have 10 come in. If they need 8, you get 10 to come in rather than 0. So it's not such a big deal if they, something like this, that they have to change it a little bit. You want to give them a little bit of wiggle room so they can get through. Okay, now for the fun one. And by the way, in my auditing, I have found that a lot of times when you find some, it isn't that all of them are messed up. You find one that's really messed up. Just looking at our documents, what do you notice right away? Which one of these documents is kind of unusual? Before you even do any testing, just kind of look over these documents that you're given here, and which one jumps out as, man, that's odd. Anyone? Oh, come on. Well, I don't know. We'll start going through it, I guess. But there is one of these on here that is, just looking at it, it's not right. I'll tell you, if you figure it out, put it in chat or yell at me or something. Okay, let's start going through this one. The maintenance requisition order signed by an authorized employee. Okay, it's Terry English. Coming down here, this is it's like general maintenance. Terry English is not jumping over like that. Terry English is actually not authorized. The deal was lost it. Okay, so let's take a look here. So looks like requisition order signed by authorized employee. This would be a no. This should have been signed by. It should have been signed by Muhammad. No, Muhammad should have bought this, not Terry. All right. For approved items, MGs are approved items, looks like it. Dated on a report at the same time as the purchase order. Oops. Yeah. Okay. Signed by authorized. Normal. Oh, copy and paste error. This shouldn't be there. Take that LED thing out. There are no LED lights on this one. All right. Yep. Shama, yeah. Descriptions match. Yep, we do. And so are the quantities. Receiving report, yes. Approved vendor. New clean, we knew that. New time clean, I should say. Was authorized, yes. Is authorized. Three competitive bids, we already know it was yes. Pricing. Yeah, you know, you knew these are, you knew these are heads. Adding them all up, does that add up? 30 and $1.32, it does. 10%. Okay. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Signed by an authorized employee. Actually, it is. Bill Bethke. Items on the receiving report match that on the purchase order? They do. Another yes. Receiving report has count of items. No. Review the date after. This is a yes. We know that from the other one. Item quantities for the accounts payable match. No. Prices match. Yes, they do. Approved by an authorized employee. Yes. Kelly. Dated before within 30 days of receiving it. It is. Okay. Oh boy. What's the problem with this one? There are actually 3 problems with it, at least. What are they? Anyone? Say what? This will be the last thing we do in class.
Bill Bethke didn't actually count on the receiving report.
Yeah, so there's no count on the receiving report. Yeah, how come there's no merge in here? Let me do it up here. Okay, no count on the receiving report. I'll throw one in this maybe is kind of the same thing, along the same lines anyways, and that is but the receiving report was signed. Oops. Without count. What was Bill Bethke signing? So there's a couple. There's 2 more problems here. One is kind of obvious. The second one isn't. Give me a hint. It's actually a repeat problem. Something we ran into earlier. No, there's no count here. So what's the problem going forward from that receiving report? With the accounts payable and the vendor invoice, what's the problem? It's actually kind of a big one. And we ran into it earlier.
Was approved for payment, but the receiving report was blank.
It wasn't just that, the price was over it. There's nothing on the receiving report. But it actually got paid. It got paid without, so there is, I think you can safely say there's a problem with invoices getting paid, even though they don't match up the documents that they have. So, okay, now let's go back up here to Terry. Terry English is not authorized to buy stuff and not authorized to put a requisition order in. And yet Terry did for maintenance stuff. Now Terry is general maintenance. Terry is authorized for what? Vehicles. So, truck stuff and car stuff or whatever. But Terry put in this requisition order for window cleaner and work gloves. There is something a little odd and I guess somewhat cute about the work gloves. What is it? I didn't realize I had these vendors on here. I have 2 vendor listings. I shouldn't do that. I'll have to correct that. What's a little bit odd about this? Why is Terry ordering red gloves and blue gloves? Why does it matter? And 5 gallons of window cleaner. This is one of those things you gotta be careful about because this might be somebody ordering something for themselves. Blue gloves and red gloves, maybe those are his and hers. They do yard work together, things that keeps the family close. So one of the things you look for are people ordering things for themselves, and people who have authority can do it, but also people who maybe don't have authority. And yeah, I ran into this before on an audit that there was um, uh, there's a maintenance guy, maintenance people who were ordering stuff, and there was 2 chandeliers. This is, by the way, this is an assembly plant in Springfield, Ohio, and there was 2 chandeliers ordered. And no one caught it, but it was like, can I see these chandeliers? I want to see where you put the chandeliers in the, on the assembly line. You're bolting together 30,000-pound trucks. But anyway, so you gotta be careful about people actually ordering, and they're working on stuff every day. They're like, hey, look at that. I just ordered from here. It is possible that somebody in the production, maintenance area just looked at it and thought, get a couple of pairs of gloves and some cleaning fluid, who's gonna know? That sort of thing. So you gotta be careful about what people are actually, why they're doing it. And the fact that this isn't even Terry's area makes it more unusual. So what they're ordering, it could be unusual. So it could be that um, Uh, Okay. Okay. So it could be used by employees at home. No, I messed up my spacing. So you could have some problems here. Okay, so but let's go to the end here and take a look at it overall. So here is the results of our testing. Well, and this is kind of what you end up with tested controls. Having done this test, what's probably the biggest thing that you would, the biggest worry about the internal controls? Now, again, this is internal controls. We're not talking about the dollar amounts. The only reason we care about the dollar amounts is that, is the control aspect of it. Not necessarily the dollar amount itself, but what the control aspect of having the different amounts mean, And even this one, this $34 and whatever, 45 cents, the dollar amounts may not be your biggest worry. What is the biggest, go ahead.
Now, I was going to say the biggest concern is the fact that the vouchers are being approved for payment
Yes.
as the pre-existing.
I'm going to use the term voucher. I was tempted to put to use vouchers on here because a voucher is similar to an accounts payable in that it's actually you line up all these three documents for approval. Maybe it's not going to help you guys, but in future ones I will put the voucher approval process. Yeah, they're getting paid even though it's not matching the supporting documents. That's the biggest problem there is here. And what that might tell you is there might be a bigger problem with the purchasing in general. That if you're finding these things that are getting paid, even though it doesn't match the documents, that might mean you need to do more testing in that area, whatever it is. So maybe the maintenance parts needs more testing. So yes, the biggest problem from this. The ones are being paid regardless of the supporting documents. Purchase order, receiving report. So, regardless of whether there's problems with the supporting documents, they're being paid. And again, individually, these probably aren't that big a deal. $11 here, $34 here, not that big a deal. But as a control, that would make you think, well, you know what, we got to do more testing on, dollar testing maybe on the actual purchasing stuff related to maintenance, the maintenance department anyways. You need more to do more testing. And if if you identify a problem like this, you say, well, you do more, would you do more test of controls? No, you kind of already identified the problem. Getting more of the same is probably not going to do you any good. So what you're going to do is, okay, if you run into a problem, kind of a serious problem with internal controls, like whatever people are sending in, it's getting paid. And it looks like, on that last one, it may have then Terry took this right off the loading dock. Right? I mean, Terry came down and got his stuff. His or her, I guess. Terry could be a girl. But yeah, so there could be a problem that and Bill's like, what are you doing? And Terry walks off with the stuff, and Bill never counts it, and Bill's already signed the thing or something. But anyway, yeah, so you may have to do more testing. And again, doing more testing of internal controls probably isn't going to do you any good. Because now you identified a problem, you go, okay, we need to do more testing of the dollar amounts. Now the dollar amounts are going to be much quicker, right? Dollar amount testing, basically you're going to be doing, this. There's your dollar amount. That's it. Forget about all the rest of these. This is what you're going to look at. What was the actual dollar? What should it have been? You're going to compare it down to what was actually paid, but it's just going to be one number. You're just going to look at how they get this dollar amount, and what they end up paying, and that's it. What should it have been? That's it. So it's much quicker to do. You guys can't see what I'm doing. I'm an idiot. Okay, that one was just for me. Okay, now I'm going to do it for you. Testing for dollar amounts is just this. We would just be looking at what should it have been, what was it? That's the only thing we look at when we're looking for the dollar amounts. We don't look at whether they approved, were they not approved, who counted them, all that kind of stuff. We don't look at that kind of stuff. We look at the dollar amounts, what they are, what they should have been. That's it. So what they recorded on their books, and then what they should have been. That's all we do. Book to audit. Okay, now I'll stop sharing. Okay, well, let's see. That's enough of that for today. You know something funny? I thought we were going to get through that and then get through the. I forgot how long those take. It is like getting stuck in the mud. I mean, you're doing those test of controls. The worst test of controls I ever had to do was pensions. We had all these people that had all these different pensions when I was at Navistar, and each one took like over an hour because people they moved over here, and then this pension comes out of this fund, and then for 3 weeks they were over here, and so there's a certain amount coming out, and you have to go through all of these. You're tracking stuff down, and some of it was done on paper, some of it was on computers. They were probably like, I think there's at least like 5 or 6 systems that we had to log into for each one. And so you get like 35, you go, oh, well, this will take like an hour, and you're there for days. But anyway, yeah, so pensions was the worst thing we ever had. Well, the longest thing I ever had to audit. So let's just turn that in, and I will send out the Chapter 6 exam. And by the way, for these, don't think for like turning in the Excel spreadsheets, don't try to make them look great in Blackboard. If they come out all funny and they're all spaced all funny, don't worry about it, because what I usually just do is pull them up and look at the whole thing anyways. So don't worry about it if the spacing's messed up and it looks garbled in your Blackboard. I pull the files out and look at them. Any questions? Okay, by tomorrow I'll have out the Chapter 6 exam, and it will be due on the 21st of November, right before break. Any questions?
No question.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.